Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Hello if you're new, hello if you're old. I want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for all of your support on my last video. I really appreciate it. Today is going to be my story. Today is going to be my infertility story, my birth control story. This is probably going to be a series of 3 videos just because I can talk about this forever. So this first video is going to be what happened to me and why I know birth control caused my infertility. Second video is going to be living with infertility, and third video is going to be surviving after birth control. I really hope you guys come back. Please share this video. It will be very informative. I do want to let you know that Tiger is over here doing his own thing today, so he might come up on the couch quite a bit, or he might hate me today and sit on the floor, who knows. So if you're interested, please keep on watching. Okay, so I do have all my notes here. This is my happy planner, by the way. If you guys ever want to see a plan with me, please let me know. Planning is my entire life. And I want to let you know, I will probably cry throughout this video. I'm trying to be strong. I'm going to try. But this story still rocks me to my core, and it's still something that I deal with every day. And it's hard to cope with. But anyways, let's get started. So way back in high school, I met my husband. We met my sophomore year of high school, and we were, doing the thing. And so I was put on birth control. I didn't know at the time. I knew nothing about birth control. I knew nothing about the kind of birth control I was getting. I went to my OB/GYN appointment. She prescribed me the pill, and that was it. I didn't really want to take birth control at the time because I have always wanted to be a mother, and I know that sounds crazy, like, wow, you wanted to be a mom your sophomore year in high school, but that's just the mindset that I always had, was that I was always going to have children very young, and I was going to be a mom, and I was going to be this wonderful wife, and I was going to get married young, and my entire life was going to work out, and by the time I was in my 30s, I could relax and chill out, and we all know you make plans and God laughs. So that did not happen. So I was a little bit brokenhearted by being on birth control, so I kind of rebelled in the beginning. I was taking maybe like the first week, second week, then stop. Then I wouldn't take the placebo week. Then maybe a couple days in the new month week. And right around the second month, I started getting those symptoms. I started noticing the weight gain. I started noticing the acne. And I never ever had acne before. And if you're a sophomore in high school, you're like, whoa, what the hell's happening to me? I cannot afford this. Acne was like the biggest thing that could ever happen to you. So I started flushing them down the toilet. I started putting them under my tongue. I just basically stopped taking them cold turkey. And to this day, I have no idea if that would have ever affected me. And I want to start out by saying this: I am not a doctor. I am not a doctor. I'm not an OB/GYN. However, I am a medical assistant. And at the time, I really researched a lot of information about birth control when I had stopped taking it. Shortly after that month of me stopping it, I didn't have a period. And then I Googled that was normal, asked my OB/GYN, she said it's normal. Then the next month, didn't have a period. Next month, didn't have a period. I went an entire year without any sort of period. And the symptoms never calmed down. The acne got worse, the fat got worse, the bloating got worse. Like, every single thing got worse after stopping birth control. And if you've heard like, oh, well, you're normally more fertile after birth control, and you hear these women who come off birth control and they're pregnant like that, and I was like, okay, well, maybe that happened to me. Maybe I'm pregnant, right? Sometimes we get in our head, and it's easy if you've ever been dealing with infertility that the littlest things, you're like, oh, I got to be pregnant. I have to be pregnant. There's absolutely no way in hell I'm not pregnant. So I kind of hyped myself up thinking, maybe you're pregnant, and did about 15, 11, 25, 35 pregnancy tests, and they were all negative. So I was like, you know what, Alexis, you're still in high school, chill out, calm down. You ain't even graduated yet, you got more things to concentrate on. Your parents are right, your family's right, you're rushing things, you're losing your mind. Go back to being a sophomore in high school and just get through these years. So my sophomore year going into freshman, so I forgot the grades. Whatever's after sophomore year, I'm sorry, don't come for me. I started school in August and I still didn't have a period. So I was like, okay, something has really got to be wrong at this time. So at this time, it was about a year and maybe 4 months without a period. So I knew that something was really, really wrong. But then at the same time, I convinced myself that, you know what, we're going back into school mode. We're not paying attention to that kind of thing. I'm fine. I'm not having my period. That's awesome. Who wants to have their period? Who gives a hell? Like, wow, you're not bleeding. Wonderful. So again, I ignored it and I put it to the back of my head. Ladies, I want to stop here. Please do not ever, ever, ever ignore your body. If it is not like you, if it is not normal, if it is off, please do not get in your head and psych yourself up that it is fine. There is always something that is going to be wrong. Our bodies are not programmed to miss a period for a year and a half. That is not normal. Whether you are a sophomore, a junior, 20-something years old, 30-something years old, or you just started your period, it is not normal. So, flash forward to about September of that school year, I got my period. And I was ecstatic. I was like, wow, like maybe my body's returning to normal. Maybe this is what I've been waiting for, you know, wow, this is really, really happening. You know, it sounds crazy that I was excited, but I felt like my body had gotten back onto the right track. So September passed, 2 months passed, 3 months passed, 4 months passed, and I was still on my period. And every single day got worse. Every single day. It's TMI from here on out, so I apologize. Every single day was clotting after clots after clots, sitting in the bathtub for hours, missing school, literally getting an entirely new wardrobe because it was ruined. I bled through everything. Getting new panties, like upping on pads, going through pads and tampons within an hour, 30 minutes. It wasn't so bad. And I didn't say anything. I kept it quiet because, again, in my head, I'm like, maybe this is missed time. Maybe this is all that year and a half that I never bled. It's catching up to me now. Maybe that I was bleeding internally. Like, I'm literally in my head again, convincing myself that I'm fine, convincing myself that this is normal because I hadn't been bleeding for a year and a half. So then an entire year passes this way. And when I tell you guys, I was so frustrated. And I'm sorry, tears are coming already. But when I tell you that I was so frustrated with my body, and I was so tired, and I was so exhausted, and I was so sick, and I put it to the back of my head. I didn't want to talk to anybody about it. I was embarrassed about it. I was embarrassed of having to leave school. I was embarrassed of telling my boyfriend, at the time, my husband now, embarrassed, you know, sorry, I can't hang out today. Sorry, I can't do that with you today. Sorry, I missed school again today. Embarrassed on missing activities with my friends. Embarrassed on literally sitting in the bathtub answering calls and on Facebook and Twitter and not like sitting in the bathtub just watching it go down the drain because I couldn't possibly get up, go to bed, and like walk around. Walking made it worse. Running, the things that I loved, I was the cheerleader, made it worse. I had to literally quit my life. And I said nothing, because I was way too embarrassed about it. And finally, I reached the point in the shower, and at this point, it was a year and maybe 4 months. And I was taking a shower, and I got the worst kind of pain in my pelvic area. It felt like so much pressure. It felt like somebody was literally like gripping my entire body and would not let go. And I want to pause for a second because out of all my periods, I never had cramps. I never had back pain. I never had bloating. Like even in my worst, even that year and a half, I never ever had any of those symptoms. It was just blood. So when this pain came, I was like, what is happening to me? I sat on the tub floor and I was crying. I was in so much pain. And it just kept coming in waves of pressure. I was vomiting in the shower. Like the pain was so bad. And I had gotten up and literally it felt like I was passing a child. I felt like I was having a baby. It was so intense and so painful. And I'll spare you the gory details. But it literally turned into like a sea of blood. It was so horrible. And so at that point, I knew I had to tell my mom. I knew I had to reach out to somebody. I knew I had to sneak to an OB/GYN appointment. I knew I had to get help. So I told my mom, and she booked me an OB/GYN appointment right away. And it was with the same OB/GYN who put me on birth control. And she was like, I don't know what's wrong with you. I have no idea. Your hormones are fine. Your blood test is fine. You're not pregnant. Nothing happened, inside your body. You're not internally bleeding. You don't have endometriosis. You don't have PCOS. You don't have this. You don't have that. I don't know what's wrong with you. Just wait it out. Just wait it out. And I listened and I waited it out, and that period finally ended a year and 7 months later. And it was horrible. Then I didn't have a period for an entire year again. And in my head, nothing's wrong with you, Alexis. Your hormones are fine. Your blood tests are fine. You don't have PCOS. You don't have endometriosis. You're fine. So I didn't have a period for an entire year, and this cycle happened. I'd have a period for a year, wouldn't have a period for a year, have a period for a year, wouldn't have a period for a year. This happened for about 4 years, and then me and my husband graduated. We moved out. We got married, and I was very, very serious about trying to have a child with him when we got into our apartment. And I knew really nothing about trying to have a child, knew nothing about trying to conceive, but I joined baby boards, which I'm going to tell you now, stop. Do not do. Do not cross that threshold. Do not. Because you get on these boards and you meet these other women, and then when they start conceiving and you don't, that's one more person in your head. That's one more family member. That's one more friend that's pregnant and you're not. And that caused me to be more depressed than I ever had in my life, but we'll get to that in another video. So yeah, we get into this house and I really start trying. I start tracking my temperatures in the morning. I start drinking more water. We start losing a little bit of weight. And then we start tracking my periods, which I never did. I know it sounds crazy, but I was bleeding for so long that, like, what's the point? What's the point of tracking anything? For what? I know I'm going to be bleeding for a year from now, so why does it matter? And then we started like eating pineapple core and using Diva cups and like literally everything under the sun we started doing, and nothing happened for about 4 months or so. And then I got pregnant. And I was so happy. And I was like, this all makes sense now. Who cares about these periods? If I have to endure 20 years of periods just to have a child with this man, who cares? And unfortunately, that ended in a miscarriage at 11 weeks. And when I had asked why, they had no idea. And a lot of miscarriages, you don't know, they just happen. But I felt like it was my fault. And I think as women, we always feel like a miscarriage is our fault. Even if we've done nothing, we feel like it's our fault. And I was like, it's okay. We're going to get back on this train. We're going to figure it out. But that was a hard time. Again, I psyched myself up thinking it wasn't as bad. But that was a dark, depressing time in my life. At that time, my husband was working and I wasn't. So I literally was at home all day, every day, cleaning the house. That's when I got into decorating. That's when I got into crafting. That's when I got into the things that I love now, because I needed something to distract me. But being alone in your home for 8 hours, trying to distract yourself, can really make somebody depressed. And that's where I got. And I was just really, really heartbroken. And that really took a toll on my husband and I. I've never seen my husband that sad before. And, but we got through it. And I think, seriously, when somebody says time heals all, I wouldn't necessarily say it heals all, but time really does help. So if you are a woman who's going through that, hang on, honey. I promise that time will work for you. I cannot promise that you're going to be fine. I cannot promise that you're going to be happy, but it will pass. This too shall pass. So please hang in there. So moving past that, life started to pick up. I went into schooling for MA. Me and my husband went together. And then I got a job at the hospital, and I was a medical assistant there in internal medicine in the seniors clinic. So I was really learning a lot about my body. I was really learning a lot just working with doctors. And so I decided to start seeing another OBGYN, because to be quite honest, I didn't like the first OBGYN. That I was fine, nothing was wrong with me. At this time working at the hospital, yes, I was still on these periods. Yes, I was still bleeding for months at a time, years at a time. And at the hospital was when I had my longest period. That period lasted for 2 years and 3 days. And again, the frustration in my body, the sickness in my body. And I cannot tell you how frustrating it is to deal with an invisible illness or an invisible diagnosis. And people are like, you're fine. Why does she call to work so much? Why does she miss this? Why does she miss that? Why does she act like she doesn't care? She's perfectly fine. Nothing is wrong with her. She can walk. She's not disabled. She can talk. She's fine. And that is so frustrating. Please do not ever judge somebody like that. Please do not ever look at a woman and say she is fine. Please do not ever look at a young girl and say nothing's wrong with her. Please don't even look at a man and say that he's perfectly fine. Why is he missing this? Why is he not there for this? Why is he not there for me? There are people out there who do not look physically sick. There are people out there who are dying on the inside and can look perfectly fine on the outside. Please do not ever pass judgment on people like that, because it is frustrating for us. So I started seeing Dr. Sarah Appleton, and to this day I will still recommend her. Right now she's affiliated with Kaiser, so if you're ever in Colorado and you're looking for a great OBGYN, I would highly recommend Dr. Sarah Appleton. I will put her name on the screen below. I started seeing her and I was completely floored by how invested she was in me. I cannot thank this woman enough. Unfortunately, I had to stop seeing her because she went with Kaiser and I don't have Kaiser, but I'm really thinking on switching over to Kaiser just so I can see her again. So I started doing immense blood work with her, ultrasound after ultrasound with her. She would fit me in, she'd see me here, she'd see me there, and it was nice because I worked there with her, so it was nice to be able to just have that communication with the doctor. I know we don't all get that because we're not all in the same field as our doctors, and some people don't like seeing the doctor that they work with, but it didn't matter to me. I didn't really care. It was convenient. So we did a bunch of blood work, and again, she was like, Alexis, your blood work is fine. I don't know, but I'm not going to stop there. I'm not just going to tell your blood work is fine and send you on your way. So then we did ultrasounds, and she's like, the only thing that on your ultrasound is that your uterus really tips back. Like, my uterus basically is in my back. But she's like, nothing in your uterus says that is wrong. Like, you don't have polyps, you don't have fibroids, no endo, no PCOS, your ovaries are healthy, everything is perfectly fine. So then she recommended going back on birth control. And I about slapped the shit out of her. Excuse me for my language. But I could not believe that after everything I had went through with birth control, that her suggestion was to put me back on it. Like, the audacity of this woman. Like, I could not believe that she was like, yeah, just go back on birth control. You guys, the anger in my body. But she explained it. She broke it down, and she's like, we can go on birth control. I can give you another option to go on progesterone and just kind of see what happens. But in the meantime, she gave me 10 days of progesterone to stop the bleeding. And I did take that because, like I said, that was my 2-year period, and I was done. So I took that to stop the bleeding, and that saved me for a little bit to kind of work my body back up, try to get where I needed to be. And at that time, I have never felt more sick in my life. I was shaking all the time. I couldn't walk. I didn't have the energy. I'd like literally fall asleep standing up. I was passing out. I was just such in a bad state, and I cannot tell you how tired I was of being sick and tired. And I'll say this so much, but I was diagnosed with chronic anemia, and I know that many people in America have anemia. But I was supposed to be somewhere, the normal range is from a 5 to a 6, and I was at a 0.5. So at that time, I really should have had a blood transfusion, but I told her I wanted to start on iron first and see what happens, because I just really wasn't feeling blood transfusions. I just wasn't feeling that. So stopping or getting on that progesterone, starting the iron, kind of kicked me back up, and she was like, you know what, we'll just do ultrasounds quite frequently just to see if anything changes. And in the meantime, if your period comes back, let it happen for a month, take progesterone for the 10 days, let it happen for a month, take progesterone for the 10 days. So that's what I was doing. So I wasn't taking birth control. but I was taking progesterone for 10 days to stop my period, and then it would come back for a month, and like I could basically like stop it whenever I wanted to stop it with the progesterone. So a couple of months went by, more ultrasounds, more things like that, and I was at work and I was helping a patient, and I got back. And if you ever have like a portal at your doctor's office or something like that, I logged into my patient portal because I had had an ultrasound done maybe 2 days ago. So I logged in, I'm helping the patient, I'm like, yes sir, absolutely, you know, have a great day. I think this was around like Christmas time, so I was like, you know, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. And I sat down and I logged into my computer, and she was like, hey Alexis, so your ovaries are completely, or your ovaries are the findings of PCOS. And at that time, I had no idea what PCOS was. As I had mentioned, my doctors before, and even her, said in the months to pass, the years to pass, I didn't have PCOS. So I put that out of my head, had no idea what it was. And I just remember looking at my computer, and I kept reading it. I just kept reading it and seeing the word PCOS, seeing PCOS. And down below it, she was like, this is not curable, but can be managed with diet and health. And I just remember reading, this is not curable, this is not curable, this is not curable. And I broke down. I started crying at my desk, and my coworker was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine, I'm good, thank you. And I just could not stop crying. I could not. And I never replied to her. I immediately went downstairs, and I was like, I need an appointment with her as soon as possible, because what the hell is wrong with my body? So I got an appointment with her, and she was telling me, you know, going over PCOS, going over how many women have it, and just kind of telling me, showing my ovaries, showing everything. And I was literally crying the entire appointment, and I came back home and I was like, we're never gonna have a baby, I'm never gonna be able to give you a child, like, please leave me. I begged my husband to leave me, and I think that was, and I know I said the miscarriage was the lowest part of my life, but I begged my husband to leave me because I never wanted him to be with somebody who couldn't give him that gift. And that was hard for me as a wife to admit that I can't give you what you're looking for, and I want you to go be happy with somebody else who can give that to you. That was hard for me. And my husband, being the husband he is, was like, absolutely not. I don't care what's happened to you. I don't care if you can't give me children. I don't care if you have cancer, like literally, like just everything. Like, I don't care what happens to you. I am by your side. And to this day, I cannot thank my husband enough for that. And Aaron, if you're watching, I thank you from the bottom of my heart that you have stayed with me and you have not judged me. I love you. So after that happened, he was like, we're going to be aggressive about this. We're going to figure this out. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't have tissues. We're ghetto over here, so I got the toilet paper roll. But, so after that, I was like, well, what do I do? What am I supposed to do? Like, and I kept talking to her about it, and she's like, you gotta lose the weight, you gotta get a healthier diet, you know, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. And I said, well, what about having a child? And she was like, I'll refer you to a fertility specialist. So, we started working out. But if you know me, you know I love chicken nuggets. Chicken nuggets are my family. And I just, though I was working out, I was still eating like crap. So, that didn't really help too much. But I felt like I was getting somewhere. I was getting my energy back. I was taking my iron again. And I was taking more supplements. My husband was taking vitamins. And like we were doing good. Then I started seeing the fertility specialist, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to reenact this appointment because I have never been so disappointed in a doctor before, ever in my life. And I am not here to bash her, but I will leave her information below because I do not ever want anybody in God's green earth to see this woman if you are trying to have a child. So me and my husband had literally typed up like an entire book of everything that I have done, my periods from literally 5 years ago, what I'm taking, what I ate, how much weight I lost, literally everything I typed up for this woman. So we get to the appointment, and I'm like, hi, like, I'm Alexis, this is my husband Aaron, it's nice to meet you. And she's like, oh, you know, nice to meet you too. And so she pulls out like the labels and my chart and everything, and she's like, oh, Alexis, age 20? You're 20? Don't you know you're like way too young? I'm sorry, what? You have like your whole life ahead of you. Don't you think you're too young to have children? And I looked at my husband and he pat me on the knee, and I was just like, I cannot believe she said that to me. But I said, you know what, whatever. She can help. She can help us. So I'm like, yeah, well, I typed out everything. Here you go. So she picks it up and she's like looking through it, not even reading it. She's like skimming it. She's like, okay, sure, So we're gonna get a couple blood tests and do another ultrasound, and then I'll call you with the results. And I was just like, you're not gonna go over my papers? Not really necessary to me. So here's a sheet. She's like highlighting everything. She's like, you're gonna go here for blood work, here for the ultrasound, here's my number to call me when you're done. And I was like, are you kidding me? Had no bedside manner, didn't care about anything. So I do the blood work that she asked of me. I do the ultrasound that she asked of me, even though I literally had one about a week ago. And she wouldn't let my husband in the ultrasound room. She said it wasn't necessary because we weren't having a baby, and this wasn't a baby ultrasound. So the fact to have my husband for support didn't matter because we were just taking a quick look. And I cried that entire ultrasound. I cried. And got my blood work back. Again, blood work was normal. She did my egg count. She did, I'm sorry, my phone's recording, or else I could definitely tell you guys what she did, but I'll make sure I insert pictures somewhere along this video. So yeah, we do everything, and she's like, your egg count's great. Your luteinizing hormone isn't really popping up right now. I think that you're not ovulating. Everything else was fine. So she basically concludes that we're not having a baby because we're not ovulating, which I could have told you because I have PCOS. And if you ever would have read my chart or read the paper that I typed up for you, you would have known that. So I was like, well, I already know that. And she goes, let's get another ultrasound because we only looked at your ovaries in this ultrasound. So I come back about like a week later, and I do just the uterus ultrasound. And she goes, I think you might have polyps or fibroids. And so I'm like, oh my, why do I keep getting these diagnoses when I asked the previous doctor and nothing is there? Like, why does this keep happening to me, right? So she's like, we're gonna do a uterine biopsy. And I was scared out of my mind. She answered none of my questions. She answered none of my fears. Didn't tell me what the procedure was like. So at the time of the procedure, I show up to the appointment, and I get undressed in the room, and this other doctor comes. And so I'm like, you know, who are you? And she's like, oh, I'm the resident. Do you mind if I do your procedure? And I'm like, no, have at it. Because I never wanted that woman in my care ever again. So I'm like, have at it. And it was painful. So uterine biopsy is where they just take little samples of your uterus and test those. But it's like pinch and grab, and it it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but it definitely was uncomfortable. Thankfully, my husband was there for me again. So I did that, and she was like, tested it, and she says, I think that your samples were like either polyps or fibroids. So I think that we should really go in there and take a look. And we can do the surgery, and you can do a hysteroscopy and a DNC. So not a hysterectomy. I wasn't taking my uterus out. I was just removing everything that was inside of my uterus. And I said, I gotta wait. I panicked. I never ever had surgery in my life. I've never been put to sleep. Never, ever, ever. So I had a panic. I lost my mind. I was like, oh my goodness, hell no. This just ain't meant to be for me. This is just my life. This is the card that God has dealt me, and I'm just gonna be fine. No. So again, I got in my head and I convinced myself that this is what God has dealt me. This is my life from now on, and I'm just gonna live it. That it could be worse. It could be way worse. So just tie your laces up and let's run the show. So year went by, and my anemia got way worse. Well, I shouldn't say way worse, because it went from a 0.5 to a 1 at this point, which was still really bad. And I got into a new job. I got out of medical assisting, and I went into a more quiet job that didn't require me to be running around and taking care of patients, which I think really helped my anemia on the surface, because I wasn't exerting so much energy. But underneath that surface, ooh, child, I was dying, for real. I was literally dying. I was running on the fumes. I was running on the last drop of water. I was running on just fumes, you guys. I cannot tell you how bad I felt. And at that time, I wasn't taking my iron anymore. I think I just got really, really defeated after she told me I needed surgery. I just got so defeated that I was like, no, this is my life, so who cares what happens? And I got so depressed, and I just wasn't caring anymore. So at that time, literally without the iron supplements and with my anemia being that bad, I was dropping like flies. I was done. But I held on. Again, convinced myself that this is just the cards I was dealt, and I kept pushing. Then I got into medical assisting again, and that's when I was like, okay, Lex, you gotta get it together, homegirl. You need to fix it. So then I got into that job, and that's a job that I'm currently at. And thankfully, my boss was very understanding, and she let me do infusions. Well, not let me, but wasn't upset that I was missing work so often. And they called me, and they're like, we have to do an insurance authorization for your iron infusions. And I was like, are you kidding me? I work with insurances, and you're telling me that you have to do an authorization for me literally passing out and dying and dragging my ass? Are you kidding me? So I was like calling them every 5 seconds, like, this is absolutely unacceptable. And they were like, man, we will call you. We will call you as soon as we get it. We will have your station set up, and you can come over to the hospital. So I went over to the hospital as soon as they called me. I left work, and I was literally to the hospital in about 30 minutes. My husband got there in about 30 minutes. And we set up the iron infusion, and I felt so sick. I felt like I was going to throw up. I was like, if this is how I'm going to feel, I don't want to do this either. I don't want to do this. And so I did infusions 2 times a week for 4 weeks, and then 1 time a week for 4 weeks. That was my order. Maybe a month later, and then I felt that consistent energy, and I felt like myself again, and I felt great again, and I felt like, maybe I should have been doing this a long time ago, and I felt wonderful. And then the period came back. And that one lasted for another year. And so that brings me to January of 2018. So it stopped right around there. And then I got a letter in the mail that Dr. Appleton had moved with Kaiser. And once again, I felt my entire world was crumbling. I felt like this is it. These are the cards I was dealt, and this is my life again. So I called Dr. Appleton, and she referred me to one of her partners, and I started seeing Dr. Christopher. And I love this woman. I don't think I'll ever find an OBGYN as much as I love as Dr. Appleton, but Dr. Christopher was amazing. And she was like, Lex, I really think that surgery is what you need, because we had did another ultrasound, and ultrasound was fine, but did another biopsy and had confirmed that the samples were in fact fibrous or polyps. So she was like, we need to get the surgery, you need to do a hysteroscopy, you need to do a D&C. I waited, but I got that done either June or July. And I will post my pictures of what my uterus looked like before and after on the screen. It was literally night and day. And I'll post maybe some Snapchats that I explained my entire surgery. But before, I had polyps all throughout that joint. Some were tiny, some were big, some were like growing other polyps in them. It was really, really bad, and I was so nervous and anxious about that procedure. I had sent a message to my husband, and I basically told him, like, it was right before I was going to go back, because I think he wanted, I had literally typed out an entire message, and I told him, hey, I'm going to send this message to you, but don't read it until I'm back there. And it was basically like, I am so sorry that we have to do this. I am once again so sorry that I'm putting you through this. If I don't come out of this, like, please know that I really fought tooth and nail to give you this child. Please know that I fought for you. Like, I fought to stay alive, and, you know, I was just so nervous about it. And again, him being the awesome husband he was so supportive of me, was there by my side when I came out of that surgery. And it was painful, but again, not as bad as I thought it was. What really got me was recovering from anesthesia. I'd honestly say that part was the worst part for me until maybe a week or two after the surgery. Then I felt that pain. But going back to what my uterus looked like before and after, I had a polyp that was blocking one of my ovaries. So, and I'll put the pictures here, but one of my, I'm sorry, I'll probably put the name here of what it's called, because I don't remember it, nor can I pronounce it. But it's basically the hole that connects your fallopian tube to your uterus. So one of my sides, I believe it was my left side, was blocked by a polyp, but my right side was open and clear. So she took that left side one off, and she basically took everything else off, obviously. But she said, I really think that opening being closed by that polyp was really, really a bad thing for you, and really caused you to have your infertility, and really caused all the problems that you were feeling. So I recovered from that surgery, and I followed back up with her, and she again went over my pictures and everything, and she said, just wait it out. It might take your body a while to balance back out with after surgery, and you might not have your period for a while, so just kind of wait it out. So that was July, and then the whole summer passed. I had no period, and I started to get anxious. About like maybe August, I was like, please don't let this be happening to me again. Please don't let this be happening. Like, God, I cannot do this again. I cannot do this again. So I had to message her, and I had another appointment, and she's like, wait it out. You know, I know it feels horrible, but wait it out. And here's some progesterone just in case. But like months kept passing, and I didn't have a period. So I was like, oh my goodness gracious. Months kept passing, and I had no period. So I was like, what is happening? And then I started thinking, you know, well, maybe I should start taking the Clomid. And my husband and I had kind of confirmed that maybe we'd like to wait on having a child, because things were happening with our jobs, and he had gotten a new job, and he had got promoted, and like things were just kind of happening in our personal life that was just really good news for us. And we're like, you know, let's get into another apartment, let's buy a house, let's kind of chill out. Those haven't happened yet, those are coming. So October came and nothing, and then November 2018 came, and actually no, let me back up. October 2018 came, and I finally got my period, but it wasn't normal. It was like I was basically spotting, and I spotted for 2 weeks. That turned into 3, that turned into 4, and then I was in November. And I'm like, what the hell is happening to me? So then November came. The first week, second week in November was Shark Week all over again. Was in the bathtub again. Was, you know, canceling appointments, canceling dates, canceling hanging out with my friends, buying new wardrobes, buying new underwear. And I was like, wow, this just really sucks. This really sucks. Like, this surgery did absolutely nothing for me. Wow, how wonderful. I wasted all this time. And I wasted all this money. This is great. So Thanksgiving Day, my period stopped. And I shouted from the rooftops because I've never had a period stop like that like it used to before all of this happened to me. It would always like kind of slow down, turn different, you know, turn brown, like, you know, and it would kind of stop. But this one abruptly stopped. And I had counted that the days that I was really only bleeding was a normal week, but I was still spotting the other days. And I totally know that that is not still normal. But I had saw Dr. Christopher again, and she had confirmed, you know, still not normal, but that's different than your other one, than your other cycles have been. And I think you should start on the Clomid and kind of see what happens. Or I think you should continue to wait it out and see what your next period is like. So that brings me to today. Today is December 8th, 9th, something like that. And I have not had a period since November, or since Thanksgiving. And I feel like my body has returned to normal, and I don't know how to explain that. My acne's gone away. I don't have the bloating. I don't have the things that I had before the surgery. And I feel okay. I'm feeling like I'm getting that sickness feeling back again. I feel like I'm getting that lightheadedness, that dizziness again. So I want to go see my primary care provider and check my iron and check my CBC and check my blood count just to make sure. And if that's the case, I will definitely bring you guys along for that journey if I ever have to do IV infusions again. But I want to make this video, and I want to post this video because I had nobody when I was going through this. I had nobody around me that had said birth control can be bad. I had nobody around me that said, you know, birth control has side effects. Nobody. At that time, I was in high school. I was around my older cousins. I was around, you know, seniors, and I was, like I said, I was in the cheerleading team, so I was around seniors and their boyfriends. I was around my boyfriend, who I was sexually active with, and at that time, you think birth control is wonderful. I could be thoughting around, who cares, you know? Please don't be thoughting around, but like, totally using that as an example is that we are taught that that is good for us at that age. We are taught that being on that birth control can stop you from things. Being on that birth control can help you to live a life, can definitely, you know, help you with other things. And I want to stop here. Please don't come for me in the comments. There are some women who need birth control, and if you are one of those women, I am glad that birth control has worked for you. From the bottom of my heart, I am happy that you have found that solution, and that birth control has fixed your hormones, has fixed your periods. I am happy for you. But there are a lot of us out there who birth control has completely turned a coin for us, and I don't feel like as women we talk about this enough. I literally searched high and low. I asked my doctor. I looked for support groups. I looked for women who were going through the same thing that I was, and I found nobody. So sharing this story to me is you know, sentimental to me, but I feel like I need to share this story, and I feel like I need to, you know, tell girls that there is somebody out there who's going through this, and if your body is doing something that is unnormal, please do not ignore it. Please do not put it to the back of your head. Please do not rationalize that this is the cards that you were dealt with and you're just going to live this life. That's not normal. And I just want you guys to share this video. I want you guys, I don't even care if you like or dislike this video. It's just important that there is a little girl that this video will be shown to, so that she knows that this is totally not normal, and that bleeding this long is not normal. And do not ever quiet yourself. Do not ever be quiet about it. Do not let your body get to somewhere that you cannot handle. Do not let your body get down. Do not be okay with dragging your ass. Do not be okay with feeling like the room is spinning every time you stand up. And I want to show you guys all my pictures, all my tests, everything that I've done. So I really hope you guys stay for the videos in this series. And if this is not your cup of tea, I understand. I get it. But I just want you guys to just be informed and really have your options, that birth control isn't always all good, and birth control isn't always fun. And if you have ever gone through something like this, or ever took birth control and noticed something about your body, please post your comments below if you'd like. I know some women don't like to share that, but I'd really like to hear your guys' stories and hear if you guys ever went through anything similar. But I pray that you haven't, and I pray that you never ever do. So thank you guys for watching. I know this was a long video, so if you watched to the end, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.